All looks good. Hey, how you do, everybody? 'Tis I. I'm back. Surprised that I decided to do this review in the snow, huh? Anyway, what is the next review I'm gonna do for you folks this time? Well, the one you all been waiting for, folks. I'm gonna review to you Back to the Future. Great Scott, Marty! It's been that long? And I know some of you are thinking, what took me so long for me to do my review of Back to the Future? Let's just say I had a hard time. Had a hard time trying to find this until I finally got it. But since you all wanted me to do a review of Back to the Future, let's get to it, shall we? What we have here is Michael J. Fox playing Marty McFly. Now, he's a teenager who wants to be a rock star. Always thinking about rock and roll. I mean, it's his dream. 'Cause it's the power of love. Sorry, 80s songs always gets me. Believe it or not, did you know that this movie, Back to the Future, was made in 1985, and it's about the same year I was born? I'm not kidding. I was born in 1985. I was born in 1985, the same year this movie was made. So pretty much the first movie is about the same age as mine. Anyway, Marty McFly, he hangs out with the scientist who goes by the name of Dr. Emmett Brown, played by the legendary Christopher Lloyd. And much to his surprise, Doc Brown made a time machine from an old-fashioned car, and it's a DeLorean. Of course! I mean, if I decided to make a time machine, why not build it with some style? Of course, I prefer the TARDIS myself. But basically, I never watched Doctor Who when I was a little kid, but I grew up watching Back to the Future, and Doc Brown was my favorite time-traveling character I grew up watching. Who wanted to be Doc Brown? A guy who created a time machine and warning Marty about how the time works and he ain't supposed to mess up time. It's the same thing how the Doctor is on Doctor Who. He always warns his companions. But of course, Doc Brown, he's a human being and not a Time Lord. So you can see that. Well, anyway, back to the story. When he made his time machine out of the DeLorean, the only way he can make the time machine is he has to use plutonium, and he stole some from the Olympians. And sadly, he gave him fake parts to build a bomb. And as it turns out, the Olympians showed up, they found him, and then they killed Doc. And as Marty, he got into the DeLorean, traveled through time, and ended up in 1955. So now, he just cannot believe that he's in a world made in the 50s. Of course, my grandma was born in 1950. So she pretty much know how everything go in the 50s. So Marty, he messed up the time barrier now. He saved his dad from a car accident because that was the part where his mom and dad first met at the same time, but instead he took his father's shoes, and now his future mom has a huge crush on him. So the only way he needs to go back into his future, he meets Doc Brown in the 50s. And you kind of laugh over some of the things that Doc Brown says. Like one time he told the Doc, hey, Doc. I'm trying to do my Michael J. Fox impression, but I'm not that good on Michael J. Fox. But Doc, what if I go into the future and I become gay? What's so wrong about being happy?
So, future boy, who's the president of the United States?
Ronald Reagan.
The movie actor?
That was true. Back in the 50s, they thought of Ronald Reagan as an actor, but never thought that he'll become president in the 80s. Who'd have thought? But after all this, he convinced Doc that he was from the future and showed him the time machine that he invented in the future. And the Doc got so excited about it. So right now, he also discovers that he looked into the picture of his family and discovered that they'd been erased from existence. So if he doesn't put his family back, if he doesn't get his future mother and father together, he will be erased from existence. Wow. This is very heavy.
What is with you saying the word heavy? Did the future have a gravitational pull?
Oh, here's one joke I wanted to say. Remember the scene where he saw the time machine got back into their present, and when he touched it, it was so cold?
Well, I have to make a DeLorean. If I use one with no sunroof, I get frozen today!
I always wanted to do that joke. If some of you haven't seen Suburban Commando, you know exactly what I'm talking. Then you should watch that movie, Suburban Commando. But those of you who have seen it, you get the joke.
I was frozen today!
Anyway, moving on in the story, Marty tries to warn Doc about his future, that he's going to be killed. But Doc refuses because he cannot alternate time. People are destined to die. But anyway, Marty finally got back in the DeLorean and discovered that he's in a time machine. He can go into a certain time where he can warn him. So now, and of course, the problem was that the time machine, he needed to get enough electricity, about 9 gigawatts, in order to get this machine to go. And the only way he can do that is the lightning from the clock tower give enough electricity to let the machine go. So he created an antenna and a hook and to plug in the electricity, connect electricity to the time machine, and therefore, bam, goes back into 1985. So, Marty finally did it, found Doc, but sadly he was too late and Doc got shot. And saw himself going into the past. But as he checked on the Doc, he knew he was out. But the Doc was alive, and he had a bulletproof vest. And then Marty said, "And you tell me that I ain't supposed to alternate somebody's future? Not to disturb the past?" And Doc says,
Well, the way I figure it,
"What the heck?" And that was the end of Back to the Future Part 1. Now, let's get to Back to the Future Part 2. Now, this one was really different.
because it's about your kids, Marty. Something has to be done.
But Doc, we don't have enough road for you to go.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
So, they went into the future. Right to, wait for it, 2015. So, when I come to think of it on the 2015, it's kind of funny to see a movie that's supposed to be set in this time and Doc telling Marty about how things had changed. And I brought here a list of what really happened is pretty much true and what is false. I figure, what the heck. Let's see on my list. Number 1. Many channels on TV. That is pretty much true. In the future, there are tons and tons and tons of channel. But now Netflix, there are more channels. Number 2, 80s nostalgia. That is true. A lot of people likes the 80s so much that some of the 80s fashion clothing are now back in style. And there's even an 80s dance club where now everybody dresses up as the 80s and dancing on the 80s song. And there's also an 80s bar where it looks a lot like the 80s. No waiters on restaurants. It's true. If you ever go to Chi-Chi's, there is a computer where you can just press any kind of button of what kind of food you want without anybody walking in front of you saying, "Can I take your order, please?" Imagine that. That's interesting. Voice-activated machines. Well, everybody know about their mobile phone, right? Works by automatic. Talk to the machine, and it does whatever you want. And now I hear on text message on phone, you can just put your voice into it, and it would automatically type in the words you say before you send it. Oh yeah, focusing on the phones. That's right. In that future, you see the family, they kept they're paying more attention to their phones instead of talking to their family at the dinner table. That's pretty much true. Ever since automatic phones been created, now everybody's more focusing on the phones they have and texting to their friends without even talking to their family right in front of them. Not having a normal conversation. That becomes quite a bothersome to some people. Oh yeah, the Miami team. Remember the scene where it says that the Cubs won against the Miami? Well, now, there wasn't a Miami team in the baseball team, but now there is. So, that's pretty much true. Surfing at Vietnam. Oh yeah. Back in the 80s, it wasn't safe to go to Vietnam back in the 80s. But now there is a surfing area in Vietnam where you can go surfing. Surfing Vietnam. Ba bum ba bum bum ba bum ba bum bum. Oh yeah, drones. You know those tiny little helicopters with those camera drones? Well, now there are some reporters who are now using them, secretly, to videotape the current event that's happening. That's pretty much common now. iPhones. Well, you know these people who have these electronic devices that Doc uses to see through a distance? iPhones have a camera where you can see in the distance. But of course, here are the wrong things that didn't happen in the movie. I mean, that happened in the movie, but didn't happen here. Flying cars. We still don't have the technology to create flying cars. We still have cars with wheels. Jaws 19. Oh yeah. They thought they're gonna make another Jaws film. Well, I got news for them. They only made 4 of these Jaws films that I have. And that's all they done. All 4 Jaws film. And Jaws Revenge is hilarious. You get a lot of laughs in this movie. People always thought that they're going to make another sequel. I mean, if they're going to do a futuristic sequel, why not stick to James Bond? Or some other franchises that'll never die. Sheesh. Oh yeah, phone booths. Since mobile phones were invented, phone booths are now the thing of the past. Where exactly would Superman would change since phone booths are no longer around? Oh yeah, Japanese. As you can see that Marty McFly gets fired from a Japanese boss, it's pretty much saying in the future that the Japanese own all the companies. Well, that never happened. I don't think the Japanese are not keen enough to own everything in our country. Fax. When's the last time you had a fax machine? I mean, the last time I saw a fax machine is what my grandma and my grandpa used back in the 90s. And I haven't seen a fax machine since. Inside Out clothing. Can you see? I mean, you saw the clothing in that movie, in that sequel. I mean, that was ludicrous. No lawyers. They thought the justice system was so much better they abolished all lawyers. Not true. There are, like, way more lawyers in this future than there are back then. There's so many lawyers that can choke a horse. Newspapers. When's the last time you held a newspaper? Well, in big cities. There are some small towns that they still use some newspapers, but in big cities, they stopped using newspapers since you can Google the news so you can stay current. Tie itself shoes. Remember those Nike commercials? Marty McFly tries on these new Nike shoes, and it automatically ties itself. Imagine that. Well, that never happened. So, forget about having shoes that ties itself. I'm still getting the hang of tying my own shoes. But anyway, enough about what happened then. Let's get to the movie, shall we? Anyway, in the second movie, this is how it goes. In the second movie, Marty discovers that his son is a total wimp, and he's being bullied by another descendant of the Biff family, who is now part human, part machine. You can hear a lot of on him. So now Marty tries to fix it until future Biff, this is what he did. He took the book where it told all the histories of all the sports game who won, and he went into the past and told his past Biff to keep this book. It will change his future. So now, when Marty went back in 1985, his town turned into Detroit City. If any of you ever been to Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. Biff became a huge billionaire, and he turned this one place into a casino, and also had the school burned down. And he also murdered Marty's father and married Elaine, his mother. So now, Marty has to go back and get that magazine before that disaster ever happens. So now, Marty finally got the book, battled against Biff, and Biff landed on manure. Manure! I hate manure! Biff and manure. Nothing more hilarious than that. And then all of a sudden, something happened. He did burn the magazine that he bought. So now, his father is alive. Doc Brown isn't committed. He'd been graduated. Everything became great. But a lightning struck on the DeLorean, and now the Doc is gone. He thought the Doc is dead, until he gets a letter. But the letter was made in 1885, and it was from the Doc. The Doc's alive! I mean, I know he's on the Old West, but he's alive! So now, he needs to go back and meet the Doc in the 50s, because he's the only person who can help him. So after Doc saw Marty went back in 1985, he was so shocked to see Marty back. He was like,
No, it can't be you! I sent you back to the future!
yeah, I know, Doc, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
Great Scott!
And it's set into the third addition to this movie, Back from the Future, Part 3. In this one, he's on the Old West there, partner. That's right. So now, Marty has to go back in the ancient West, and he meets his ancestors, and also met Biff's ancestors, Bulldog Tannen. And of course, he also saw Doc's future. His future, he's going to be murdered. murdered by that mean dog, by that bad guy. Sorry for the snowflakes. I'm trying my best to get the snowflakes away from the camera. So, anyway, and Marty goes into the old past and calls himself Clint Eastwood. You know, here's a huge joke. You should figure this out, folks. If you see Marty dressing up as a cowboy the way Doc gave him that silly cowboy outfit, and he says this, Clint Eastwood never wore anything like this. And if you look right behind him, there is a poster of the Revenge of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And that was Clint Eastwood's first movie he ever starred in. Revenge of the Creature. So now he meets Doc Brown, and Doc Brown, he falls in love with a girl named Clara. So now he kind of struggles. Could Marty save Doc? Or take his place? And would Doc live happily ever after with Clara? Or die? Or what? Go back into the future? So now how the things goes, Marty finally defeated Mad Dog Tannen and saved the Doc. And of course, they decided to use a train to let the DeLorean go as fast as speed as light. And he finally went back into the 80s, back in 1985, and got connected with his girlfriend. His girlfriend had a fax machine that says he was fired, and it's got something to do with the street race. But as it turns out, Marty was smart enough. He went the opposite on the street race. So now, his bully Snail's got nothing to hold against Marty. And the fax machine, where it says he was fired, was a race. And of course, he was afraid that Doc will never come back into the past. But as it turns out, he turned a time machine out of a train. That's really cool. So therefore, this is the ending of Back from the Future. And this is a pretty dang good movie. Believe it or not. The movie was so dang good. And I'll always remember the movies. And I always remember Doc Brown. Now, here's a little something I would tell you folks. Believe it or not.